All right, welcome back here. 10:02 on this Thursday morning, Jock 98.7, and we're going to change gears here. But you know what? This is fitting because we have spent the first hour talking about the draft and players who weren't drafted and how that's not doesn't mean anything. Once you get into professional sport, it doesn't matter. And our next guest, Cole Maier, who plays for the Manitoba Moose, AHL affiliate of the Winnipeg Jets. You were undrafted, right, Cole?
Yep. Yes, I was.
And so, I mean, once you put on the sweater, it doesn't really matter. No, it doesn't. The sweater doesn't come with a tag that says I was a first round pick, so that means I'm destined to go here, right? It's like to each their own at that point.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly you're on your own when the puck hits the ice.
Well, first of all, thanks for joining us. You hockey to me is my favorite sport. I mean, my goodness, I'm from St. Louis, so what the Blues were able to do last year was just spectacular. And
Oh
uh,
yeah.
the game, how do you explain the game of hockey to somebody who hasn't really been a big fan of it?
Um, I guess I would say it's certainly fast paced. Guys are flying around on their skates. Um, it's a physical game as well. I mean, it's not football. We're not tackling each other, but there's definitely some big bodies thrown around into each other. And one of the cooler parts also is I know there's not a lot of fans allowed to go to sporting events now, but when you're right up on the glass, you can get pretty close to the action. Similar to sitting courtside, you can get sort of right up to it. Guys will get hit right in the 6 inches in front of your face, so you can really get the full experience when you're at the games.
It is two very different experiences as a fan. If you're on the glass, you realize how fast it is and the physicality of the game. And when you're up in the rafters, it's almost like you're watching plays develop, and you really get a keen sense of just how smart and how next play oriented most good hockey players are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty cool. You get to sort of try both, and throughout my career, I've been able to see both of them also. So it's been a lot of fun.
So the Manitoba Moose, how is life in Canada? Now you reside in New Jersey, but Manitoba, that's got to be a bit of a change.
Yeah, so Manitoba was definitely something different for me. I had been to the Jets development camp a summer or two before that, so I got a small taste of Winnipeg, and it's definitely different from the East Coast of the United States. There's a lot more room up there between everything, but they love hockey, so the community has been awesome, and it was a lot of fun up there this year.
Are the crowds just spectacular?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We actually share a building with the Jets, so we definitely don't get the same turnout as the Jets, but they do a pretty good job filling up the bottom bowl for us, so they create a pretty fun atmosphere.
Did you happen to hear Max Kellerman on First Take, who had some interesting comments on hockey fans?
I did hear a bit about it,
Yeah.
as well as some guys' responses to him on Twitter. It's pretty funny.
I love the images that have been shot back at him with these crowds of, whether it's a parade or just fans waiting to get into a playoff game or any game for that matter. It's like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, what a horrible take.
I know, but I guess he's doing his job. He's getting paid to have people react to what he says, and he certainly got a reaction out of that one.
Well, you know what? Amen to that, because here I am talking about it. So I guess his goal was
Yeah, I
ultimately
guess I guess that's true. Yeah.
achieved. So I mean, I think the AHL is really neat because to hit on. I mean, I work in minor league baseball as well, and we have seen, I think, in the sport of baseball, a great decline in terms of attendance. And there's a Division I school here in Missouri State that struggles with attendance across the board for all their sports, regardless how successful they are. But I feel like in the AHL, they have not necessarily seen the major hit of attendance across their league, and I think that is derived from the fact that hockey fans are passionate about the sport, and they're going to show up, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, I mean, I've only had 1 year sort of experiencing it so far, but there are certainly some cities or that we go to that'll be smaller cities, but the communities seem to sort of have so much pride in their minor league teams that play out of there. I know in Iowa, just a couple different places that we go. Loveland, Colorado has a crazy crowd there, and they seem to love it. So it's been pretty interesting comparing the pro attendance to colleges.
Cole Maier is our guest here on Jock 98.7. He plays in the AHL for the Manitoba Moose, which is the AHL affiliate for the Winnipeg Jets. When did you realize that you had a shot at this puppy in terms of professional hockey?
Yeah, so I think it was my sophomore year of college. My freshman year, before college, I was sort of just trying to. The goal was just play Division 1, so that ended up working out. Then I got there, and sort of there's the big jump from juniors to college. So freshman year it took a while to adjust to that, sort of in and out of the lineup. Sophomore year things went much better. So sort of after that, sort of decided, okay, we got to figure out like we'll be able to make a living doing this, like what sort of the next step is. So that's sort of when I realized that this was an option for me.
So what clicked? Was it the first time in your life that you went through some adversity with the game? Because a lot of good players, the game sort of comes to them, and at a young age, you can just be better than somebody. But then you get to an element of your career or stage of your life where you're going up against superior talent, where you have to really begin to dedicate your entire focus to being the best possible player.
Yeah, definitely. I think at college, I Union, it's a smaller school, but they won the national championship a couple years before I got there. So when I got there, I was fortunate enough to play against really good players in practice every day. So I think being able to play against guys who were national champions, you just gradually every single day playing against them get so much better. Our team experienced a lot more success that year, which was also beneficial to everybody's sort of individual career. So yeah, I think it just sort of took off from there.
So Union College, that's in Schenectady.
Yeah, Schenectady, New York. It's near Albany.
How was that experience?
That was pretty cool. Different from Manitoba for sure. But Schenectady, smaller city, sort of. I'm pretty sure it was the home of GE when
Huh?
GE started.
General Electric.
Uh, yeah, smaller city. We had a small rink. I think it seated 2,500, but usually filled it every weekend. So it was a loud little building. It was a lot of fun to play in, and yeah, our team got to experience some success. It was a really fun 4 years.
It's all about winning, right? I mean, winning creates these environments in a locker room and a dressing room where the camaraderie is great, but you just can't beat the thrill of winning.
Yeah, absolutely. So my freshman year was a bit slower for us at Union, so it certainly wasn't as much fun as when things got turning. We were fortunate enough to play in the NCAA tournament in Cincinnati my sophomore year, which was a really fun experience that I'll never forget.
Who was your coach there?
Union College, it was Rick Bennett.
Hmm. What was his background?
He played for the Rangers for a bit, and then had some time in the American League, and then he was also a Hobie Baker finalist in college. Hobie Baker, that's like the Heisman of hockey, for college hockey. For those who don't know, when he played at Providence, so that was his background. Sort of a big, big mean guy, but we made it work, and it was a lot of fun.
How would you characterize accountability in hockey as opposed to other sports? And that might be hard to, compare to other sports because you don't, not in those rooms or whatever. But in hockey, it does seem like accountability for each man is at a higher regard.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you touched on it a bit earlier. With winning teams, I would say it's even more so important. You could tell sort of everybody's sort of been on a team where things just don't quite come together, and so guys might be on their own page, or guys don't want to say like, "Hey, you're not doing your job," or "Hey, I didn't do my job." And I think when people are able to say, "This was my job and I didn't get it done," or "You did your job and you got it done," that being able to hold everyone accountable makes a huge difference in terms of winning.
Cole Maier is our guest here on Jock 98.7. I'm just looking at Manitoba. Man, you are like smack dab in the middle of our North American foe.
Yeah, I think there's actually some sort of monument right. There's something right outside the city that says this is the middle of Canada. I had never been, but I know some guys on our team talked about it this year.
How do you guys travel from city to city?
So we fly. We don't bus anywhere because we're too far. So we fly Minneapolis, and then from Minneapolis to wherever we're going. There's San Antonio is in our division as well as Texas. So we go down there quite a bit. Then we have Milwaukee, Iowa, Cedar Rapids, and Chicago are in our division. So we fly to all those places.
Wow. I'll tell you, you
Yeah.
guys are logging some miles. I mean, that's commercial airlines.
Um, mostly, and then every here and there we'll be fortunate enough to have a private flight, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you can't beat the charter.
No, no, that is nice. Definitely no complaining there. We get treated really well.
Do most AHL teams? I feel like they bust, don't they? Most.
There's a lot of busing going on, yeah, especially on the East Coast. Teams are just closer, so the rides are sort of under between 6 and 8 hours, I think. But for us, it'd be a pretty long way to come all the way down, and then crossing the border is another sort of obstacle in there. So I guess flying is just easier. I'm
How,
not sure, but those guys have it figured out for us.
how are most of the venues in the AHL? Is there a pretty wide range of amenities, or?
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of pretty different. We're fortunate we get to use the Jets building, so that's an NHL building basically. So we definitely get spoiled there. And then other places are where Iowa plays. It's the same building as the G League team. San Antonio shares a building with the Spurs actually,
Hmm.
so that's a nice big building. They got that down there. They do their rodeos too. It's pretty cool. Um, so yeah, it's sort of this sort of mix in between like a college stadium or a professional stadium. It just depends on the city you're in.
So like what's an average day for game day? You got a morning skate, you go back. If you're on the road, you go to the hotel, take a little nap, grab a bite, and then kind of gear up for the game.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty close to it. It feels like it's been a while since I've played in a game since the season got shut down late March. But yeah, so if we didn't have a game the night before, we'll have a morning. There'll be meetings in the morning before the morning skate. We'll have a morning skate, then you go back and have your pregame meal, take a little nap, and then come back to the rink between 4 and 5, have a snack, and be ready to go for 7 o'clock.
How about nutrition? There has been a major emphasis on nutrition and diet in every sport, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years. Big time change
Hmm.
because I think players just used to eat whatever the heck they could because most of the time you're not living on, a first class diet here because you don't have the money. But there has
Yeah,
been a major emphasis on changing nutrition in sports.
yeah, that's definitely. And I was fortunate to be able to do 4 years of college, so the strength and conditioning coach there always harped on nutrition as well. Sort of, you get what you put in, so you got to feed your body the right stuff. And I don't know, it seems to get more and more interesting every year. I feel like Tom Brady's got his book, and everybody's got their book on what they eat now. About they eat meat, they don't eat meat, they eat this or that. So there's so much research out there. So I think it's important to make sure you do your own, and then you know your body, so you got to learn what works best for you and make sure that you're doing that.
How about in the AHL? Like your coach, is he an employee of the Jets, or how does that sort of work out?
Uh, he used to be an assistant coach of the Jets. They work pretty closely together. So I guess he's the head coach of the Moose. He doesn't go on any. He'll go to the Jets games at home, but he's not traveling with their team because he's always busy with us since we sort of have opposite schedules for the most part. But they're pretty. They're in touch all the time and pretty close knit.
And so, do you feel like is he constantly reporting on, you and the rest of the team's performances to somebody with the Jets, so they're constantly evaluating what's happening?
So there's a player development coaches who sort of are there. I'd say they work with us quite a bit, sort of trying to get guys ready to be able to play in the National League. So they do a lot with us to sort of help us, and there's constant communication between uh, within the organization.
Cole, what would you tell your younger self about, trying to get to this stage where you're at and continuously moving up the ladder? What would you tell your maybe at 15 what you could do now to prepare yourself better?
Um, I would say just sort of trust in yourself and believe in yourself, especially when you're 15. For hockey, at least, I know, and I'm sure it's the same with other sports. You always read or you hear these reports that kids are committing to these Division I schools when they're freshmen in high school or sophomores in high school, and they have all this going on, and you haven't heard anything yet. So you're sort of like, am I falling behind the ball or what's going on? But I think if you just listen to your coaches and trust in yourself, you might not be the first guy to get a commitment or sign to play professionally, but just take your time and enjoy it.
Were you surprised that the AHL called off the season, or really, I mean, here we are almost 11, 12 weeks later after everything got shut down. It just probably wasn't feasible for them to return.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we were getting ready to go on a road trip the next morning. Actually, we had a flight 6:30 or something like that, and we were watching TV, and the NBA was on. And the games just stopped getting played in the middle of the game, and someone was like, "The NBA just got shut down," and it was like, "Well, if the NBA is shut down, the NHL is probably not far behind it, and if that's happening, then we're next." So we sort of got shut down the next day, and then we were wondering. I remember that day talking to guys, thinking like, "Do you think we'll play any more games the rest of this year?" And it was sort of a split between guys who thought we would and wouldn't. And then once they told us we could go home, it felt like it was going to be a while away. And then after like a month or so, we could tell it would be tough to be able to figure this all out.
So what are you hearing in terms of next season? I mean, have they given you any sort of expectation as to where this is headed?
Not. I mean, not. Nobody really knows. I guess within sort of any field or sector at this point. Just waiting. I know the NHL started its phase 1 or 2, or they're getting going again. So they're trying to finish this season. So depending on when they finish, will I guess give us sort of a date or a goal at least for when next year will start, which is definitely going to be later than what we're accustomed to.
You know, I know you're part of the Jets organization, but I got to tell you, the Blues knocked the Jets off last year in 6 games. And
Yeah.
the Jets may have been the toughest team that they went up against. They may have presented the most difficult challenge en route to the Boston Bruins, but you know what? You can't blow a lead like they had with under 10 minutes to go. And Jaden Schwartz, who had the Hattie in that game, you know, that to me is Game 5 changed the entire series right there.
Yeah, he had the hot hand and just sort of wrote it out. But I know being from the same division too, the Jets and the Blues see plenty of each other, so I'm sure there's lots more of that to come.
You excited to see if hockey can figure this all out to get them back? It'd be great to see any sport right now. I mean, man, you talk about grabbing the bull by the horns. Whoever comes back is going to, I think, reap major benefits. The ratings will be off the charts high.
Yeah, absolutely. I know all my buddies were excited just to watch the Tiger Phil, Tom Brady, and Peyton sort of showdown the other day. I know the Charles Schwab is going now. They got to have a ton of viewers this week going on just because there's not much else to do. So I hope the NHL can figure it out sooner than later.
You know, you hockey players have it made. First of all, it seems like you're all very good golfers, okay? Now, I love to golf. It's a tough game, but for whatever, the hockey shot must be similar to the playing of a golf swing because I've played with hockey players. It's unbelievable. They're just naturals at playing good golf. I mean, we know that hockey players like to have a good time. Look no farther than a Stanley Cup parade. I mean, they get drunk for 2 months. You know, hockey players have a pretty good lifestyle going on.
Yeah, definitely no complaints here. There's certainly a lot of us that do golf. I don't know how many are good golfers, but they definitely enjoy the golf experience, I guess you could say.
Do you ever bring your sticks on the road, or is that kind of frowned upon?
I wasn't able to, but I know when we go down to Texas, there was a Topgolf. So if we ever had a day off down there, guys would like to take advantage of that warm weather since we weren't quite used to that in Manitoba in the winter. But when we were in Texas, we tried out the Topgolf and hit some balls around. It was always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll leave you with this. I think Pete DeBoer said he gave some – well, he was pretty critical of Winnipeg in general. He was like, there's never daylight. It's dark. It's wet. It's cold. Like, who would ever want to be at Winnipeg? But, you know, you got to take it for its own beauty. Have you found some of that up there north?
Yeah, definitely. It's not. It gets a bad rap, I feel like sometimes. It's not really as bad as some people. It's different from what a lot of people are accustomed to, so they're not quite used to it. But there's a lot of really cool stuff up there. There's some cool hikes and things like that you can do while you're looking to kill some time.
Well, Cole, listen, we'll be rooting for you from afar. We'll be looking at the schedule, too. Maybe we'll come make a road trip and watch you on one of these road games. But when you make it to the National Hockey League, don't forget about us peasants here in the Midwest.
Yeah, definitely.
Flyover
Thanks
country.
A lot.
All right, man. Hey, stay strong and be well, and we look forward to watching your career develop.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Nate.
Thank you. Cole Maier joining us from the Manitoba Moose, part of the Winnipeg Jets affiliation in the National Hockey League. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more Sports Report on the JOCK 98.7 FM.